For maximum growth, see YouTube videos. For technical information and prices, see 12 Plant Hydroponic Goes and Hydroponic Equipment Buyer's Guide. Now then, look at the light reflector in this video. See how it works. It's a double parabolic reflector. You can't beat this. It's mathematically perfect. We say mathematically perfect. And the heat rises up and out of the reflector and pulls the cool air through your plants and cools the plants. Now, this video was produced by ACI Hydroponics to show innovations and facts that can help growers get the most from their gardens. Creative hints are throughout the video. Pay attention to the whole video, and there's little things all the way through it. This video was made to show the advantages and disadvantages of stationary lights and moving lights. Watch it all and you make the call. Now here we have a moving light over a 12 plant garden. Now in this experiment we're going to be mostly concerned with the two center rows. We're going to have the Thai basil in the front two cups to the right, and the Italian basil in the front cup to the left of the center, with Thai basil behind it. The moving light has condensers on the side. We put reflectors on the side of this moving light to direct the light down on the plants. By moving the light over it, we can move the light closer to the plants and achieve the same thing that the sun does outdoors. It's always moving. Here we have the stationary light over the Thai basil and the Italian basil. The Thai basil is to the right, the Italian basil is to the left. This was taken on the 23rd of October. Now, both seeds in both gardens are the same age. The Thai basil is a single plant. The Italian basil is 4 plants in one pot. You can see that the size of the leaves of the Italian basil are very big and trying to get as much light as they can. Unfortunately, they're shadowing the leaves down below it. And what we need to do is see the difference between the Thai basil and the Italian basil. Here is the Thai basil underneath the moving light. Now this is the difference. These are 23-day-old plants, and the Thai basil is on the right-hand side. There's 2 plants, one behind each other, and the Italian basil is to the left of this. Now you can see the difference between the growth. The Italian basil here is only about 1.5 inches between the sections on the leaves. The Italian basil under the stationary light was about 3 inches between the sections. You can also see the okra growing in this video to the rear of this. And there's a tomato plant in front of it and string bean in front of that. Now, this is the Thai basil on the 23rd of October. This is the way it starts to look with the moving light. It's getting full and thick. Here we have a side view of the gardens, and you're going to be able to see the mylar sheets that were placed in between the rows. This reflects the light when the plants are just getting started and makes them much fuller. Both gardens were using reflective sheets between them. Both gardens were using the condensers on the side of the lights. You're going to see the lights with the condensers, and what we're doing is focusing all the light we can get out of it
on it because of the moving light, that it's making a canopy out in front of it and on top of it. Now, right next to it are the 2 different basils that we just saw in the stationary light. The Italian basil in the front here, and then the Thai basil behind it. And right to the side of it is more Thai basil. Now, what you've got to look at is the difference between these plants. The plants in the other unit were about 3 inches on the Italian basil between the segments, where this plant is about 1.5 inches. Much more bushier, fuller, and thicker. Once the leaf grows in front of the other plant's leaf, it never can get light with a stationary light. Where with this moving light, light goes back and forth from one side to the other, one end of this garden to the other. And here we have the Thai basil where it's just going into bloom. and look at all the blooms that this thing has on it. Not just one, not just 10, not just 20, but a bunch. And they're little purple tie flowers. They're incredible. They're just incredibly aromatic. We use them in salads, stir fries, everything. And look how thick these plants are. Now, if you can't even see through these plants, they're so full. What we're going to do is get back a little bit, let you take a good look at them, and then we're going to show you part of what is the trick to us capturing all the light that we can. We always want to get as much light on the plants as we can when we're dealing with indoor lighting. So what we've done is, in between the rows of the gardens here, we have mylar underneath it. And the mylar down below it tends to bounce the light back up onto the plants. Now then, what we have is, as you're moving the light, the angle off the mylar changes. It's always changing, and it's shining in on lower leaves, upper leaves, back leaves, front leaves. It's going all over the place. There is light shining up on the rooftop here in the room, because anything that would have gone to the floor is now being bounced back up and through the plants. And this is part of the big trick that we're using here, is to use the moving light. Here we have some tomatoes, and the tomatoes are a little over a month old, and then there's string beans in front of them, and then okra in behind them. And you can see the bottom of the reflector. We're going to go up and show you what is actually taking place with the reflector itself and how come it's moving from one end to the other. Now here's the top of the Italian basil, and then as we stop and take a step back or two, what you're going to see is the Thai basil, which is right next to it, and the two of them were together, and there's some of the tops coming out on them. And what you can see is, if you're growing a plant that you're trying to get tops and flowers and stuff, the moving light is going to beat any stationary light that there is. There's nothing out there that can compete with what we've got. And then you can see the mylar in between the rows here, and that's where the reflection of the light up above it is coming back up into it. Any angle, as the light moves back and forth, it shines on all these different angles. Now then, let's take a look at the actual light itself, and we'll go up, and there you can see the light, and that's the reflectors on the sides of it. And now you can see the reflection going down onto the plants. So we get more light down on the plants than probably anybody else that you know. There isn't any reflector out there that can do what these reflectors are doing. The condensers on the sides are about the best thing that we've got. You can't beat this. If you can, give us a call and tell us what you think is going to do better than this.
We use the best plant food that you can possibly buy. We use the Aqua Grow and the Aqua Bloom plant food. Cost as low as 4 cents a gallon. Look at the color of the plants. They'll tell you how healthy they are. The scientists at the South Pole use our plant food. Now, let's take a look at the stationary light. This is the plants grown under the stationary light on October 23rd. And what you can see are their Thai basil to the right, Italian basil to the left. The Thai basil to the right just barely is starting to bush out. The Italian basil is 4 individual plants. This is on October 23rd, and they're just getting rolling. So you want to watch out, because you need to get a full and thick plant.
The leaves are good color, everything's great, but it's just not very dense. Now, let's take a look at what a moving light can do. And both of these are using a light with condensers, which are reflectors on the side. And that's where we'll go to the light.
The side condensers underneath the reflector are meant to either focus or condense the light. so you get more light driven down on your plants. We minimize your wall light. You can see with this reflector, depending on the number of plants that are below it, we can spread the condensers out or we can focus them down in. We have the 12 plant garden underneath there right now, and we're getting maximum focus down on your plants. These plants are able to take the light because it's moving up above it. We don't get hot spots like everybody else does. We don't have the heat building up because we have the vents in the top of the light letting the heat up and out, always drawing the cold air in from the bottom and the hot air goes up and out the top. Look at these plants in this video. The light is moving over the plants constantly. It's never stationary except on the ends where the ends balance out the amount of light through the center. This is doing the best job it can do. Now what we're doing here is we're looking at the light which has been lowered down on 3-foot chains from the mover. The 3-foot chains have S-hooks so that you can raise and lower the light by 3 feet. That's what you want to be able to do. As the plants grow, you slowly bring it up and bring it to the top of the carrier. This is where the carrier is right now, and that's moving in towards the very end.
As fast as a second hand on a clock. 1 RPM. Takes a full minute to turn one time around. So it pulls about 3 inches a minute. And it's a slow and smooth and steady little pace, and it works really well. This is where the carrier that moves the light is going to stop for about 30 seconds when it's coming to the end of the run. It's mechanically paused while the arm goes around the sprocket. It takes a while, it doesn't move, so you equal the amount of light on the end to the equal amount of double hits in the middle. It gives it longer time to equal both ends to equal the middle. So you get a hedge. It's set up for it. Now here's the arm moving around the sprocket. The motion of the carrier now has come to a stop and will be there for like 30 seconds until it goes past, and then it starts pulling and heading out the other direction. Then it'll start moving it again. This is part of what we have the patent on. This is what makes it work. Is the mechanics of it. To stop a light on the ends for 30 seconds equals the light in the middle. Look how full these plants are growing. This is no joke. The ones without the moving light look like they do. The ones with the moving light, look at how well they're doing. Now here you can see just how bright the light is. And there's very little of that light going to the floor. A lot of it gets bounced up in between the trays and goes back up onto the ceiling. So once the plants grow between each other, they get to have all that reflective light coming back in on them. Here you can see the plates on the side. That's for when we're growing things that are going to bear fruit, like squash, zucchinis, eggplant, I don't know, something that's going to be laying down there, cucumbers. And then all the plates in the middle are made to reflect the light back up, so as the light changes angles, it shines in from underneath on different angles and catches some of the lower leaves. It's just about as best as you can get. There's nothing better. None of the big reflectors with all the hoses and all that. This is how to do it simply. You don't need the hoses. You just have a little fan taking the hot air off the top of the room and a small pipe coming in from outside, if you're lucky enough to live where it's cool enough, or you have something from inside your house or a small evaporative cooler, and you'd be surprised what you can do. Or they have chillers and stuff that you can just add if you're growing indoors.
Here's the simplest way to cool a room and your plants. You only need a 4-inch inline fan to cool the room, not just the light. Our vented reflector keeps the hot air moving up, and the plants are always staying in cold air from the bottom up. Now, this is a 4-inch inline fan with a bracket on the top of it mounted. This is not the level you want to
Now
mount.
what we have is a can fan up here at the top of the ceiling, and that's the most practical way of getting all the heat out of your room. Take the hot air off the top of the room bring the cold air in on the bottom, and eventually once you've subtracted all the top hot air, then all the cold air's got to come and fill the room back up from bottom to top, and that's the better way to do it. A simple little 4-inch fan like this will evacuate most rooms in a matter of just a few minutes. So several times an hour you're going to change the air in the room. If you're in Arizona, you may want to just draw air from the rest of your house or room or whatever you're at. And if you're in some place where it's cooler outside than it is inside, then you can draw the outside air in on the floor and all the hot air off the top. That's the most practical way of doing it and the most economical way. This way you can use the moving light, you can use the exhaust fan without all the hoods and blowers and everything. People are selling you hoods for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. You've got to get over that, America. It's way too costly for what you're getting out of it. This is a more practical, useful way of doing it. Move the light, your plants will love it, it's easier to control, and you're getting more function totally out of it. So here again we can see the fan, and it's mounted right to the ceiling, and that's about all that it takes. Now here's the plants once again from a high view, showing the Thai basil into the rear and the Italian basil into the front. And what you're going to see there is the Italian basil in this plant has just about maybe 1.5 inches distance between the set of leaves, and that's a much denser plant than the one with the stationary light, which has about 3 inches in between the leaf segments. And the Thai basil, what we can do is let's go up and take a look at the actual Thai that's actually behind it, and you can see the buds forming on it, and that sucker is just thick as can be, and so is the plant next to it. Matter of fact, the two plants have joined in with each other to make a hedge, and they're right above the reflective mylar, and you can see how thick and dense this plant is. You can't hardly see through it. It's so solid. And that's what you want to get, is real short, dense plants. You don't need to grow Christmas trees. It's the silliest thing there ever was. So this is the better way to go, and you can't beat it. Give it a try. Give us a call, and we'll give you all the information that you ever want to know about. Now here we are at the stationary light, and what you can see here is the cucumbers behind it. That's I believe they're Asian cucumbers. They're extremely large leaved. The leaves on these things are 14 inches across. They're enormous leaves. Underneath every leaf is a cucumber. It's really productive. I can't imagine this thing. It's just going nuts. Now what we're going to show you here is on this reflector, this has got the collectors on the side, the little side collectors. And what we're doing is driving as much light down onto the plants as we can get. You can see the vent holes in the top of this reflector. By those two little holes at one end and 2 holes at the other end, it's exhausting all the hot air up and out. And by the hot air going out, the cold air has to be drawn in from underneath. So the cold air is always coming in at the bottom, and the hot air is always going in out at the top. Now let's go down through the cucumbers here and go back and look at the basil, which we started in the beginning of the video. Now here we have the Italian basil. That's the tallest. This basil is actually not one plant. It's actually 4 individual plants. You can see the top. There's one to the rear, the second one a little below it, third one, and the fourth one. And you can see how tall it is in between the stems. Between every set of leaves, it's almost 4 inches. Now, the Thai basil is off to the right of that. Let's zoom in on that a little, and we'll be able to see how that one's doing. It seems like there's one top on the Thai basil right now, and it's starting to bush out a little bit, but you can still see through it. It's not thick enough to make it so thick that you can't see past it. The closer you get, the more light seems to be coming through. And you can see the one top on the top of it. I think we're going into the shadows of it. I don't know if that's going to be clear enough for you guys to see it, but there's one top, and there's a lot of little branches starting to come out on that, and it may actually produce something. Most people would be happy with that. We're not. We know that it'll go better than that. And so what we need to do now is, this is basically 1 month and about 10 days old from the time it was a seed. And then that's basically what you're getting here. 1 month and 10 days growth. You can see how far it is in between these sets of leaves. There's no way that once a stationary leaf casts a shadow on the one below it, for the one below it to get enough light to do anything. The color's good, the size of the plants look great, the leaves look great, but the problem is there's just not an abundance of them. Now here we are at the moving light. The little gardens here with the vented hood, the little condensers on the side of the reflector, and just pumping that light right down on all those plants and all those different angles. And what you see is the okra. In the beginning, at the beginning of this video, the okra was below the timers. Now the okra is actually above the timers. You can see there was 2 timers on the wall, and there were times in the video when you can see the light actually moving and going past the timers. Well, now it's become a little canopy, and it's starting to shadow all the timers. You can't hardly even see the timers. Here's the Italian basil plant in the moving light garden, and you can see how full this one's getting. We'll go down a little bit lower, take another look, and see what it looks like. It's bridged the gap between the Italian basil plant and the Thailand basil plant. There's hundreds of tops on the Thai basil now. We'll get it off to another shot or a different angle here where you can actually see it. Maybe we'll go to the side, and that might help a little. But you can pretty well see what's happening, that this plant is doing incredibly well. And that's what you want to do. You want to have your plant be at maximum. The moving light, the garden, the aeration, we aerate the water in 10 different locations when this pump is running. Watch the video. Watch either one of the 2 videos, and it shows how we aerate the water in 10 locations. We just use a little tiny pump. It's a little aquarium pump. But what we've done is we've worked on our technique. We're working for technical expertise here on making these plants grow. I would say that we may not be the best in the world, but we're certainly number 2. This couldn't get much better if you tried. So there they are, down to the tray, and you can see the trays that they're in and the mylar in between them. So what's happening is the 2 plants have pretty well bridged the gap, and so very little of the light now is going to the mylar because the leaves are taking it all in. And this is just starting to make its comeback and go the other way. Now, if we take a look at the rest of the garden, there were tomato plants to the right of this. And what we have is there's 2 tomato plants in there. They're Israeli tomatoes. They're baseball size. They're in bloom. They're actually starting to produce tomatoes. And the tomato plants are now, with 1 month and about 10 days, let's say, who knows, counting the germination time and everything else, 1 month and 10 days, they're in bloom, and the tomato plants are 24 inches tall. And that's the Israeli baseball-sized tomatoes. You can see the okra down below it, and that's pretty much what it looks like. That's the follow-up. That should be the end of our experiment at this point. You make the call, and give us a call. We've got the 800 number. We'd be glad to hear from you and hear your comments, or write your comments below the video. Let's see what everybody thinks, and let's see what other people are. When you try this, if you try our equipment and all of a sudden it triples your growth, then that's what you want to do. That's what we're here for. We're here to show you what we've learned. And you take that information and run with it. If the mylar in between the plants is going to help you, use it. Whatever helps, use it.
This video is an experiment about the moving light versus the stationary light. Video shows things to better your garden. We work with simple rules of physics. Our goal is to better growth and cut your costs. That's what we're about. We are trusted hydroponic innovators, and others try to sell you more. We try to do more with less cost. That's what we believe in. See other videos for details and how things work. Go to YouTube and see the 2 videos and click above the screen and you'll see 9 videos, and there's all the rest of them. See the hydroponic equipment buyer's guide and the 12 plant hydroponic goes.